I have been seeing a lot of theories about the backrooms these past few days. I've been seeing people go to and fro talking about, well, the backrooms is actually his Clark's mind and his mental hellscape, and actually, it's actually the collective consciousness of everything. And I've never seen anybody propose what I'm about to propose, so I thought I'd put this into the conversation just to get things started. Please enjoy behind me me just going through the backrooms. I grabbed the images from Kane Pearson's YouTube channel. It's just what I grabbed all around. So I'm going to talk about how I feel about the backrooms and what I think the backrooms overall is. This may be the worst theory you've heard or the best theory you've heard, or maybe you've had this theory yourself. Who knows? Maybe we've all synced up in the mind of a dream of a dreamer that we cannot fully understand. So let's talk about the backrooms. I have spent more hours than I'd honestly care to admit wandering through the yellow halls of the obsession of my mind of the backrooms. I find it so liminal and entertaining, and every time I think I have mapped the territory, the walls shift, and I find myself standing somewhere new among the backrooms, the fluorescent lights, and the yellow hum, almost losing my mind into the backrooms in itself. The backrooms conversations always starts in the same place. Yellow wallpaper, this fluorescent buzz, the oppressive weight of infinite corridors that stretch towards a horizon that never arrives. It is 600 million miles of nonsense. People get comfortable there. They settle into the aesthetic. They treat it like a vibe or a mood or a collection of images. We want to wander through the back rooms and discover every mismatched thing because we've seen this before, but this is slightly different. The newness of it is what entices us because it somehow feels familiar and different at the same exact time. I swear I've been here before. This reminds me of a thing, but I can't quite recall it. But that is just the entry point. That is the lobby of a building that has no top floor. I think there's a real question coiled beneath the carpet, trying to trip you. What actually is the backrooms in totality? You see, the film gives us Clark falling through the side door of his furniture store, only to land in more furniture. That's it. He lands in directly as he goes to the wall. There's more furniture where Clark sees it. Just immediately more furniture. The backrooms does not build from scratch. It borrows, it steals, and it reaches into the mind of whoever happens to stumble through what it already is. It doesn't matter if you never enter the backrooms, you are already a proponent of helping build the backrooms. Let's take the stop sign, for example. There's a stop sign that pops up, and I think about this stop sign a lot because it's mismatched and messed up. Now, this could be the backrooms messing things up, or it's as if he's hungover. Now, the entire movie, we can obviously see that Clark has a drinking problem, a problem of drinking, problem having a little bit too on with the boys, a little bit too many brewskis. That's it. That's what he's doing. He's trying to remember. The entity or whatever is the backrooms is trying to remember what Clark was seeing at that moment when he was drunk, at his most comfortable. He is most comfortable when he's drunk. He is most comfortable when he is, I say, disillusioned with reality, and more so in his hypnotic state. Even the therapist approaching Clark has stated, you had stated you hadn't had a drink since Friday, and Clark was off his gourd, not really himself. Clark is most himself when he's drunk. That's why he ruined his marriage. That is what he usually is. The architecture is wrong. Strange. It's like a wax fruit. Resembles an apple. It is not creating anything, actually. More so, it's interpreting, as if the entire universe is translating a translation of a translation, taking the raw data of human experiences and rendering it in a language that only barely approximates the original language. Clark's drinking problem becomes the lens through which everything else makes sense in the movie. The distorted signage, the disorienting geometry, the sense that you are seeing the world through a glass that has been smudged by someone who has had one too many. Remember, the backrooms is not a neutral space. It is not a blank canvas waiting for you to project meaning onto it. It is a parasite that feeds on the specific texture of whatever damage that you have. It takes the thing you are trying to forget and builds an entire wing of the museum around it. Every hallway that you go through in the back rooms is you, but it's also everyone else. Let's take, for example, his still life. A still life is the gigantic masquerading pirate thing that gallivants throughout the entirety of it. How does Clark imagine himself, and how do people see Clark in those commercials? Well, they see Clark as a gigantic, hulking pirate. They see him as a pirate. So before Clark even entered the Backrooms, he was already getting the public perception of himself as a pirate. That's it. He imagined himself as a captain, a leader, a man of stature and significance. He walks through life gallivanting and staggering around, hence why he has a slight limp to him as he walks in the still life captain form. There's a slight limp to how he operates. That small limp, that little limp as he goes through. That is him drunk. He is a bloated, monstrous version of himself, a creature that consumes without thought, that stumbles through existence, leaving destruction in its wake, that mistakes appetite for purpose and control. It's all he wants. And then there's that big-ass throne. It's a scene where Clark is going through the first time he enters the back room. He sees this really big throne. That's because he thinks he's a pirate and a sultan. He even questions at one point, one of his people that's helping him record, even says, well, I don't understand. Are you a pirate or a sultan? And Clark has no answer because he's directionless. It's the contradictory nature of the insanity within Clark that makes the backroom so enamored by him. The exaggeration is there because his ego is what demanded it. But the grotesque form is not anything different. See, the Backrooms doesn't judge, it simply reflects. And oftentimes what we see in that reflection is just the mirror. We cannot smash the mirror because we don't like the reflection. Now we arrive at the question of consciousness. Is the Backrooms alive? Right? Think about this question a lot. And I want to say this. Dreams do not think. And that's the first thing we got to accept as we go on this. Dreams do not plot or scheme or pursue goals with intention. They unfold. They happen. Right? You accept the impossible because the dream has already decided the impossible is simply how things are. The physics of a dream they don't care. They just don't care. They're not physics at all. They're more so a suggestion for how we always interpret reality. You obviously can't fly. Your punches are a lot stronger. Obviously, your teeth aren't falling out of your head. They are the loose association of a mind that has stopped trying to enforce any order and purely how we represent reality. The Backrooms operates in the registry of a dream. It has structure, but not design. It has patterns that you may notice, but there's no purpose to these patterns. It feels intentional until you try to pin down what the actual intention of what the Backrooms is, because there is no intention. It's a dream. Why did I see my ex in my dream last night? Why did my dad beat me up? Well, you can interpret the dream in many different ways, and there's many interpretations of why you lost your teeth, or why your legs are falling off, or why you feel like you're falling in the middle of a dream. I think that's why people enjoy the collective consciousness theory, because it lets people hold on to something. The idea that humanity has been dreaming together, building this infinite space through the accumulated weight of shared experience. It explains the nostalgia, obviously. It explains why the hallways feel remembered even when you have never seen them before. It explains the strange familiarity that, oh, it's creeping up my spine. I get it. When you look at a photograph of an abandoned mall and feel like you have walked those tiles in another life. I think the theory is so elegant and comforting. I think it gives chaos a shape that all the human minds that see this can recognize. But and this is just me, I cannot shake the feeling that we are looking at the wrong dreamer. So, we're going to get into a little bit my favorite subject of all time. The most racist man on earth, or the most racist man in history, H.P. Lovecraft. Look up the name of this cat, please. It's very interesting to see that. Azathoth sits at the center of the cosmic horror tradition. He is called the blind idiot god, whose sleep sustains all of existence. The universe persists because it has not woken up yet. The moment consciousness returns, everything vanishes. When Azathoth wakes up, it all goes away. Stars, galaxies, memories, histories, every moment that ever happened or ever will happen collapses into the silence that has existed before the dream began. That's what it is. I think the theory is so terrifying because it reduces all of human achievement to a byproduct of slumber. Every love, every war, every painting, every poem, every invention, every heartbreak, every moment of grace or cruelty or beauty, all of it just the toss and turn of a sleeping intelligence that does not know we exist at all. That is the Backrooms. Not Azathoth's dream, but the dream of an entity in the same nature as Azathoth. What if the Backrooms is something similar but smaller? What if it is not the dream that sustains everything, but the dream that sustains itself, a pocket of consciousness that exists within something because something is sleeping somewhere and dreaming about us? I think of Gatanatoa, the son of Katilu, not Azathoth. This is like a smaller version, the offspring. It's a shadow being, a being so alien that the act of describing it is giving you harm. Language breaks in totality. You can only gesture towards it with some kind of metaphor, trying to explain what it actually is, but that doesn't actually explain what it is. Because I want you to think about this for a moment. Also, I want to explain a few things about Azathoth before I begin. If humanity remembered that we are in a dream, or acknowledges we are in a dream, all of ourselves would remember that exact existence. When we obtain this knowledge, hence why in H.P. Lovecraft, knowledge itself is dangerous because it causes you to go insane. When our cells remember, we will coagulate into a gigantic mass, shifting back into Azathoth, only going back into it. Now, this may not make any sense to you, but these eldritch entities aren't here to make sense. This is how they operate. This is what they are. And this is what the Backrooms actually builds. Infinite office spaces that obviously never had anybody having any meanings in them. Hallways that lead to other hallways that lead to other hallways that lead back to the first hallway. Staircases that descend forever without ever reaching a ground floor. It is a portrait of human life painted by somebody who has only ever received a description of what human life looks like. See, the creature understands the concept of a desk, but doesn't know why or what's a desk do, right? Understands the concept of a hallway, but not the fact that it's supposed to connect to another destination. Understands the concept of a room, but there's no life. So it's trying to recreate life in the best way it possibly can. And why, in the movie, when Clark cut into the still lifes, was it like furniture? It's because he views himself as the only real thing in his life and everybody else is furniture. Hence why the still life Clark bled. The still life Clark has blood in him, because Clark himself views himself as an actual person. However, the still lifes around, well, that's furniture. And because Gateratoa, or the Backrooms entity, is trying to recall what Clark is recalling through a recollection, it is shifting the insides of people as furniture. That's it. And Clark is a person, so it knows itself, so it feels itself as a person, because Clark has the most important significance in its life. This is an intelligence trying to understand something it cannot experience. It is reaching into the raw material of human consciousness and extracting the fragments that seem the most significant. The wanderlust that drives people to explore, the hubris that makes them believe they can conquer anything, and the loneliness that hollows them out from the inside. The grief that never fully heals, the rage that simmers beneath the surface of polite society, the longing for a life that never actually existed but feels more real than the one they are living. That's why Clark feels so at peace being there. I don't want to leave, he says. Every corridor is an interpretation of one of these elements. Every entity is a personification of one of those flaws. The entire place is a museum of human inadequacy, curated by a mind that does not understand why any of it matters. Clark is not a random victim of the Backrooms. He perhaps is the perfect experiment and specimen in which we can possibly look through the lens of the Backroom. He is broken in exactly the ways the Backrooms finds most interesting. His contradictions are rich. Same with the Sultan and the Pirate. Same with "is not my fault. I am an architect." His damage is layered. His self-deception is elaborate enough to keep the walls busy for years. The Backrooms latched onto him because he provides the most material. He's a goldmine of unresolved tension, of fantasy and failure, of the gap between who he thinks he is and who he actually is. And the therapist appears at the end as a still life because she has been fractured. At the end of the entire movie, You see the therapist at the bottom of the barrel of everything. Because the Backrooms has been feeding on her too. She is stuck in her trauma. She is stuck in it. Who knows, the inside of her might be concrete. Because her family, what happened in the past. It's disgusting. It's sad. But it is unbiased. It's an infection that grows. The Backrooms is a bacteria. I think this reframes the entire experience. The Backrooms is not a prison, and it is not a dimension, and it is not a shared hallucination. It is a dream of an ancient intelligence that has been fascinated by humanity the way a child becomes fascinated by an anthill. It pokes and prods and observes. It builds miniature versions of our world and watches how we navigate. It tests our limits. It exposes our weakness, magnifies our flaws, and records everything. We are data specimens. We are the subjects of an experiment that has been running for longer than human history and will continue running long after the last human has forgotten how to dream. The terror of this interpretation is not the infinite hallways or the distorted realities or the monsters that hunt in the dark. I think the terror truly is the indifference, the dream of a being that dreamed this place does not hate us, does not love us. It does not want to save us or destroy us or teach us anything. It simply wants to understand what we are. And the only way it knows how to do that is to take us apart piece by piece and examine the pieces under a light that never stops buzzing. And somewhere in the infinite depths of that yellow hall, there are millions of other people dreaming the same dream. Their memories are being used to build rooms you have never seen. Their traumas are being used to populate corridors that you will never walk. Their contradictions are being smoothed under wallpaper that stretches forever in every direction. The Backrooms grows because we grow. The Backrooms change because we change. The Backrooms continues because somewhere in the dark outside the universe, somewhere in something ancient is still sleeping and still dreaming and still trying to paint the shape of humanity using colors that we don't even know how to describe. We are watching Katana throw a paint. Every hallway, another brushstroke. Every entity is another attempt to capture something it doesn't really grasp. The painting is infinite because the subject is infinite. We are too complicated to be rendered completely, too contradictory to be captured accurately, too strange to be understood by a mind that has never been human, but it keeps trying. Keeps trying. Keeps wanting these yellow halls to stretch, the fluorescent lights to keep humming. And somewhere far beneath, the walls clipping, going out. We can understand that Clark, in some ways, is still falling, but he will never reach the bottom. There is no bottom. There is only more. More rooms, more hallways, more reflections, more truths that all of us will never see. And somewhere outside all this, in the dream of something that does not even have a name that we can pronounce, we are in the throes of a beautiful artist. That is the Backrooms. To me. But this is purely a theory. I know I sounded so certain in my speaking, as if I was speaking as if I knew all these things, but obviously it's just a theory. And I've been curious to have conversation about this. Not really sure what I'm going to title the video yet. Not really sure, but I would like to talk more about this and how people interpret their understanding of the Backrooms. That is what I've gathered from understanding things. I think I've seen too many cookie cutter theories about this and thought I tossed in something different, or maybe somebody else had this theory as well. I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen anybody come up with what I'm actually thinking of right now. They simply consider the Backrooms as alive but don't really know how to describe it. I think going Eldritch is a great way to at least give a name to it, despite the names of Eldritch entities being unnameable. And anyway, in any event, in any case, thank you guys so much for checking out my video. If you guys wish to help me with my medical expenses at the current moment, I'm going through a lot of hell right now. My car got stolen and my foot is burned and singed at the top of it. I have a GoFundMe in the top comment. You are not required to donate. It is purely optional, hence why I included it at the very end of the video. Thank you guys so much for checking out my video, and I'm out. Peace. Bye.
I'm your nigga night, be my lover. Happy to try what you need. Your world, I love to live in it. I love the ride when you're free.